Hi everyone, I'm Mike from CubeCoders, and today we are doing an AMA where you can ask about me, about CubeCoders, and about what's happening with AMP. Okay, so our first question. Stella asks, what did you study at school/university? I studied computer systems engineering, which is kind of like computer science but a bit more difficult. It's got a high dropout rate, but it was a very good course and I had a lot of fun. Dan J asks, what kind of music do you listen to while programming? Mostly electronica of various types. I'll include a link to my work playlist in the video description. Chloe Price asks, is there third-party Modpack support coming to Minecraft? So there's nothing stopping you from using any mod pack you like already right now, but I would like to streamline some of the process to let you just easily drop in a zip and have AMP figure out what to do with it. So something like that is planned, it's kind of tricky to get right reliably for every mod pack. Chromity asks, what's your favourite food? Seafood. I'm really lucky to live in a seaside town, so there's lots of great food around here. Tijin asks, when will you integrate a MySQL database into AMP? So while I might introduce something quite simple just to create and delete databases when instances are added and destroyed, there are lots of existing tools that do a way better job of this, and I'm not a fan of reinventing the wheel if I can avoid it. So might have something simple, but you're better off using the dedicated tools for this. Toro Diesel asks, what's your server setup at home? I'm running a 16-core Ryzen Threadripper 1950X with 128GB of RAM and about 5TB of NVMe storage. And that's running Hyper-V, which provides all of my virtual machines and all my testing environments. This is a joint question from Ice Cub and Ayami Kaitu, who jointly ask, how did you come up with the idea for AMP, and what motivated you to move from just a Minecraft panel to what AMP is today? AMP was a fairly natural next step after MC My Admin. I couldn't just dine off of Minecraft forever, and what happened was when I started making MC My Admin 3, which was just going to be a rewrite of the original product, I realised if I abstract everything out, there was no reason for it to be specific to Minecraft. So I started down the route of adding other games, and the rest just kind of followed from there. What's on My Face asks, where do you think AMP's future is going to go? So the biggest change that's been going on recently has been this move to the generic module. Instead of having to write custom modules for each individual application, instead making it possible for people to add support themselves via a single module that has a very broad set of functionality. So I think the next logical step has been making that easier to use. So we've seen some of that already with the generic configurator, and I'd like to build something into AMP to make it easier to share and download these configurations that other people have made. This is another joint question from Amp Star and Foxglove, who ask, have you ever thought or been tempted to hire help before, and do you do it all alone? I have on a couple of occasions hired contractors for short periods of time just to help things along, but 99% of the time it's just me. That said, later this year or early next year, I am hoping to hire my first full-time employee to help work on AMP, and they will be adding support for more applications while I kind of carry on working on the meat and guts and the more technical parts of AMP. Whistle Nico asks, for Enterprise Edition, will there be an option to pay per instance? Probably not, unfortunately. The problem with this is that hosts that are small enough to benefit from that kind of pricing scheme aren't really who I'm targeting with AMP. Part of the reason that the bundles are in these fixed-sized groups is because there needs to be a minimum spend. Enterprise features are expensive to test, to build, to validate. So if you have lots of very small hosts adding their own support costs, because that's the biggest thing I notice. Whenever I roll on a new enterprise customer, there's always quite a high support cost associated with this. So if they're only paying for a very small number of servers, it's just straight up not worth it, unfortunately. Now that said, one of the things I do want to introduce is something maybe akin to an AMP Enterprise Nano. So what I want to do is have something where these smaller hosts can just pay a one-time fee, probably about £200–250, and only pay that once and get the right to use AMP Enterprise indefinitely for a small number of clients. They don't get any of the integrations, they don't get the billing support, they don't get the WHMCS plugin, but for people who just want to host a small number of them commercially on their own hardware, then they will have a route for that doesn't involve having a monthly subscription. Miss Voxy asks, how are you doing? Staying safe? I'm doing well, thank you. Since COVID hit, we've been mostly working from home, but we've been keeping everything relaxed and as comfortable as we reasonably can. Delirious asks, any plans to introduce a official Docker image? Aside from the Docker image that AMP already uses to run individual instances and containers, no. The problem is that Docker is really not the right tool for this. So one of the problems, for example, is that you cannot open new ports on an existing running instance, Docker container instance, without shutting down the entire thing. So if you've got 3 or 4 game servers running inside AMP in Docker, and you want to add another one, all of that has to be completely shut down before you can add something else, and that's a really poor user experience. That is not, it's just very inelegant. So part of the problem with that is I could not have a situation where you could just do docker run CubeCoders /amp and have any kind of decent experience. It wouldn't be able to manage the firewall. AMP just wouldn't be able to do its job properly. So AMP really needs quite a lot of control over the system to provide the kind of user experience it does. Pignu asks, what IDEs do you use? What does your development environment look like? So the main IDE I use is Visual Studio 2019, and on the back end I'm using Microsoft Azure DevOps for things like source control, work item management, testing, continuous integration, all of that jazz. Mock Funky asked, how successful would you consider AMP to be, and will it be around for a long time? Very. Despite the fact that AMP hasn't been around for as long as MC-MyAdmin, it's nearly caught up with it in terms of sales. AMP still has a long way to go though, so it will be around for many years to come. There is still a lot that can be done to it, a lot of things that can be added, and a lot of things that can be improved, never mind just in adding support for new games. Blade Dragon asks, do you get overwhelmed by your user base? Occasionally. Day to day it's not too bad, but now and then you get these sudden peaks where lots of people run into AMP all at the same time, or whenever there's a big marketing push. This of course causes lots of people to start using AMP all at once. And in those times it can be a bit stressful. It's a lot to keep up with, but I manage, and the community is large enough to look after itself quite a lot of the time. So yeah, it can be difficult occasionally, but day to day not so bad. Pylord X asks, any plans to make a custom website hosting with AMP? This is kind of similar to the database issue. There are a lot of tools out there that already do a better job of this. So again, I don't really feel the need to reinvent the wheel. AMP is designed for applications like game servers where the users have quite long running sessions that require ongoing monitoring. So AMP's not really a tool for that. I can understand that people like the fact that in AMP you just go create application this, and maybe AMP's design will change over time to be more suitable to these kinds of applications that don't use ongoing monitoring. But for now, it's not really on the radar. What I would like to streamline though and make things a bit easier for people are applications like Discord bots, which are quite popular, where again, they're going to have things that are kind of going on constantly and you might want to alter their behavior on the fly. So things like that I think we'll start to see more of in the future. And thank you to everyone who's been using AMP so far, and especially to those of you who hang around in the Discord and answer the questions of other users. It really does make life a lot easier knowing you're there, especially when people message me with questions at 4 in the morning. So I really appreciate just the fact that you're a big community and that you kind of go out of your way to help each other. So that's really great. Thank you so much. And I'd especially like to thank everybody who backs CubeCoders on Patreon. Your support means a lot. It's great to see that you have faith in AMP and you'd love to see it develop more. So your support really does help a lot, and it means a lot to me. So I'm really grateful to you guys especially. So that's all for now. Thank you everybody who submitted a question. If I didn't get around to yours this time, don't worry. I will roll any that I didn't answer into the next one. I don't know quite when that will be. This is the first time I've really done anything like this. But again, thank you all, and I'll catch you next time.